Welcome to the Pro Bono Training Institute. Upon completing this training, you will be eligible for California CLE credit. You may use the back arrow at the bottom of the screen or the sidebar to the right to navigate to its various sections. Once you are finished, you may explore volunteer opportunities related to this training by browsing the PBTI volunteer portal. Connect with us on social media to stay up to date on the latest developments with PBTI. You can follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our trainer.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Pro Bono Training Institute's Filling Out the N-400. My name is Christine Chen. I'm with Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Los Angeles. I am excited to provide this training on how to complete the N-400 so that you may help an applicant take this important step towards becoming a U.S. citizen. Today, you are going to be learning about the basic process of applying for naturalization from the time an applicant sits down with you to fill out their application through their oath-taking ceremony. Then you will learn how to fill out and complete the N-400 step by step. The first thing on the agenda is the application process, followed by the N-400 training on how to complete the form. The application for naturalization, or Form N-400, can be found online at the USCIS website. All USCIS forms are available online, including the I-912 fee waiver, which can be used in conjunction with the N-400 if an applicant qualifies. Also available through this link are detailed instructions on the N-400, which is another great resource for pro bono attorneys and volunteers. The general N-400 application process begins with determining whether or not the applicant meets the eligibility requirements for naturalization. Once it is determined that the applicant is eligible, the form is completed and submitted by mail to USCIS. The filing fee is submitted with the application unless the applicant qualifies for a fee waiver, which in that case, an I-912 fee waiver form is attached instead of a check. The filing fee amount may be subject to change, so it is important to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information, which can be found on the USCIS website. After submitting the application with the fee or fee waiver, each applicant will be fingerprinted, also known as biometrics. The applicant will receive an appointment to attend their interview with an immigration officer, where they will be tested on their ability to speak, read, and write basic English, and on their knowledge of U.S. history and civics. Last but not least, if an applicant passes their interview, he or she will attend their oath ceremony to obtain their certificate of naturalization, proof of their U.S. citizenship. Before beginning on the form filling portion of the N-400 application, here are some important tips and reminders. As I mentioned, instructions to the N-400 are available on the website. If you are not applying or typing an application on the computer, please print neatly using only black ink. I like to remind volunteers to take pride in their work and treat this like they are filling out and submitting their own form to the government. That being said, you want the form to be neat, accurate, and complete. You can enter N/A or non-applicable as appropriate, but it is not required to write it in every blank box. As much as it can be avoided, do not cross out answers or use whiteout. Of course, we are human and mistakes can be made. In workshop settings where you may be using paper-based applications and use correction tape, make sure you white out the corrected answers and write over them neatly. However, if you do need to make substantial corrections, rather than whiting out the entire page, I recommend redoing that page. The A number or USCIS number can usually be found on the front of their green card. It is a 9-digit number, but older green cards may be missing the first digit. So add a leading 0 if there are only 8 numbers listed on their green card. Dates should follow the 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and 4-digit year format. If exact dates are unknown, you may use X's as placeholders for the month and/or day. Frequently, an applicant may require additional space on the N-400 for answers that do not fit on the form. For example, if they have additional residences, employers, marriages, or children, extra pages are needed. Continuation sheets refer to these extra pages that are added to the N-400. Many nonprofit organizations use pre-existing templates for continuation sheets and will provide those to you if available. Otherwise, at a minimum, each continuation sheet must include the applicant's name, their A number, the page number, part number, and item number on the N-400 that the continuation sheet is referring to. Now we will begin the step-by-step training portion of the N-400. The first thing you'll notice is that there's a space for the applicant's 9-digit A number on the top right-hand corner of each page. Remember, if the green card A number has only 8 digits, add a leading 0 as the first number. Part 1 asks information about the applicant's eligibility. The majority of applicants you will assist will fall into either Box A, they had their green card for 5 years, or Box B, they had their green card for 3 years and have been married and living with a U.S. citizen spouse during that period, and that spouse has been a U.S. citizen for the last 3 years. Make sure that you only check one box. You may also come across an applicant who may have not hit their 3 or 5-year anniversary date that they received their green card. Be mindful that there is an early filing provision in which applicants can technically file their applications 90 days before meeting the 3 or 5-year lawful permanent residency requirement. Part 2 asks information about the applicant's name. The legal name usually refers to a name from a passport, the most recent marriage certificate, or a birth certificate. Do not rely on the green card, driver's license, or social security card, as those can often contain spelling errors or abbreviated names. Question 2 asks for the applicant's name exactly as it appears on the green card, even if there are spelling errors or initials listed. Page 2 of the form asks about other names the applicant has used. These can include nicknames or English names referred to by family members or coworkers. The applicant has the option to change their name through this process of naturalization. Applicants should be reminded that if they do decide to change their name, they are also responsible for updating their name change on all of their important documents, including their driver's license, bank statements, social security card, etc. The USCIS online account number in item number 6 is not common, but this number is assigned if an applicant previously used a USCIS online filing system. This is not an A number, so if the applicant does not have one, this can be left blank. Item number 9, the date of lawful permanent resident or date they received their green card, can be found on the front of their green card. Also note in item number 11, the country of citizenship or nationality is the country that issued their passport, but their country of birth may be different. It's not always the same, so it's always good to double check with the applicant where they were born. Item 13 says there are exemptions to the English requirement for naturalization, which will depend on how old the applicant is and how long they've had their green card. There are 3 categories to qualify for the English language waiver, which is listed in 13A, B, and C. Select all answers that may apply. If the English requirement is waived, that means the applicant can proceed with their interview process in their native language, but they are responsible for bringing their own interpreter with them to the interview. This does not waive them from the U.S. Civics test, but allows them to take the test in their own language. Part 3 asks about accommodations, which is different from a language exemption or disability waiver. This pertains to an applicant who may need some special accommodation, usually due to a physical disability that they may have in order for them to participate in the interview process. One common example is if an applicant uses a wheelchair and has limited mobility. Therefore, USCIS should provide ramps or access for the applicant to attend their interview. On page 3, starting with Part 5, information about where the applicant lives. Question 1, the physical address, is where the applicant currently lives. This may not be their permanent or mailing address. You must start with their current address and get a 5-year history of all the places they lived, or a 3-year history if they're applying based on marriage to a U.S. citizen. Mailing addresses might be different, so don't forget to ask. P.O. boxes are acceptable. Also, domestic violence survivors may provide a safe mailing address if they prefer. Page 4 continues with additional spaces for the applicant's prior residences. If the applicant has more than 4 addresses, attach a continuation sheet. Part 6 relates to if the applicant's mother or father is or was a U.S. citizen. If they are not citizens, you can skip Part 6. Part 7, biographic information. Please select the applicant's race. Note here that white means having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, Middle East, or North Africa. So many Latinos may be considered racially white, but some may identify as indigenous. You can let the applicant choose how they would want to select their race. For their eye color and hair color, you can check the color listed on their state-issued ID, such as their driver's license, and make sure that you reflect their natural eye color and hair color. Part 8, page 6, is about the applicant's employment and schools they attended. Start with their current employment and work backwards. Occupation may sometimes be unemployed, a homemaker, retired, or disabled if they are not working for some reason. Make sure to reflect any times of unemployment or school attendance. Sometimes an applicant can overlap dates where they worked or went to school. That is okay so long as the entire 5-year or 3-year history, if applying based on marriage to a U.S. citizen, is covered. There are only 3 spaces available for employment or schools, so if the applicant needs more space, please attach a continuation sheet. Part 9 discusses the applicant's time outside the United States. Travel or time outside the U.S. relates to the continuous residence and physical presence requirements to apply for naturalization. They include only trips more than 24 hours long and taken within the past 5 years, or 3 years if applying based on marriage to a U.S. citizen. I find it easier to start with the table in item 3 and begin with the most recent trip and work backwards. You may have to check the stamps for entry and exit dates on the applicant's passport. To calculate days outside the U.S., you can subtract the dates or use an online date-to-date calculator, which is available at www.timeanddate.com. Part 10 discusses information about the applicant's marital history. It is important to note that the separated under the marital status means legally separated. A common situation you may run into are applicants who have estranged spouses, who are not legally separated or divorced, but they are not in contact or living with their spouses. Those applicants who fall under that situation are still considered married for purposes of the N-400. If the applicant is single and has never been married, make sure you write 0 on question 3, and you can skip the rest of part 10 because it will not apply to them. Page 8 continues with the spouse's information. You may enter the full address if the spouse lives with the applicant, or as a shortcut, you can write resides with me or something similar to that effect for spouses and children that live with the applicant. Item 7C, immigration status. Note that if their spouse is undocumented, you can enter the country of citizenship, for example, if they are a Chinese citizen. Item number 8, the spouse's prior marriages. If the applicant's spouse had more than one prior spouse, then attach a continuation sheet with their information. Question 9A through H pertains to the applicant's own prior marriages, not to be confused with the spouse's prior marriage in question 8. Part 11 refers to information about the applicant's children. Make sure to include their stepchildren, adopt children, deceased children, and biological children. If the child lives with the applicant, you can enter resides with me for their address. And if the child is deceased or missing, you can enter child deceased or child missing in the address field. Page 10 continues with information about their children. Again, if there are more than 4 children, use a continuation sheet to list the extra children. Part 12 is a series of yes/no questions about the applicant. Mark the check boxes neatly with an X. If the question does not apply, then you can leave it blank. For example, some questions only need to be answered if the applicant has responded yes to the previous question. Make sure the applicant understands questions and answers truthfully. Wrong answers may result in a denial of their application, or in some serious cases, even deportation. A yes response must be explained on a continuation sheet. In the interest of time, I will not go over each and every question in Part 12, but I will highlight some common questions that may often entail yes responses and how to answer those situations. Questions 6 and 7 pertain to taxes, which can affect many of the applicants. Question 6 asks if the applicant owes any taxes. This is okay if the applicant is on a repayment plan, and he or she will have to show that their repayment plan is current and active by providing a letter from the IRS. Question 7A asks if the applicant has ever not filed a tax return since they became a lawful permanent resident. If at any time they did not file taxes for any reason, attach an explanation on a continuation sheet. Page 13 asks a series of additional yes/no questions. Some other ones that may apply to the applicant is question 15A, which asks about military service, both foreign and domestic. Don't forget about mandatory military conscription or training in some countries. For example, Thailand, Taiwan, and Korea do require it for certain adult males between different ages. Continuing on to page 14, question number 19 asks about military and weapons training. So this is usually in conjunction with question 15A. If that one is marked yes, this one is usually marked yes as well. If they did receive military training, and they also typically receive weapons training or training on how to use a gun. You can attach this explanation on a continuation sheet. Questions 22 through 28 is very important. This pertains to an individual's criminal history. Question 23 asks for any arrests, citations, or detentions by a police officer for any reason. This does include traffic tickets, and any times an individual may have been stopped or detained by the police or at the airport and questioned by immigration authorities upon reentry into the United States. Question 24 asks if the applicant has ever been charged with committing a crime or offense. If the applicant has received a traffic ticket and they didn't just get a warning, he or she is also charged with a crime or offense. Question 25 asks if the applicant has ever been convicted of a crime or offense. A conviction would include any admission of guilt, such as a payment of a fine, probation, or attending classes or traffic school. Therefore, if one received a traffic ticket and paid a fine and/or went to traffic school, usually questions 23 through 25 are all marked yes. Question 27. It's important to be aware about probation. This question asks if they have ever received a suspended sentence, been placed on probation, or have been paroled. DUIs, which are common, typically include probation as a sentence. So make sure that the applicant has completed their probation period before they can apply for naturalization. Question 28 asks about whether or not the applicant has ever been in jail or prison. Include any times kept in jail, even if it's less than 1 day. If only for a few hours, you can round up to 1 day. If an applicant has been arrested before, they should be instructed to bring their court records. All court records should be reviewed by an immigration attorney. Certified court records may also be required at the interview, depending on the nature of the offense. For driving records or DMV records, you should obtain these if they were arrested, if the offense relates to drugs or alcohol, or the offense has caused serious injury. But for the most part, common traffic offenses do not require obtaining a DMV record if the penalty is less than $500, or they only receive points on their record as a result of the offense. Part 12 continues with a series of questions that relate to an applicant's good moral character, another requirement the applicant must show to qualify for citizenship. A couple questions to highlight. Question 30A, have you ever been a habitual drunkard? Refers to multiple alcohol-related arrests during a statutory period. And by statutory period, that is usually the 5-year period before, for the applicant to have their green card, or 3-year period if they're applying based on marriage to a U.S. citizen. For example, a couple DUIs might be okay, especially if some are more than 5 years old. However, if there is a pattern of alcohol-related arrests, this could be a concern and should be flagged by the reviewing immigration attorney. Question 30B asks about prostitution. This must be a regular pattern of behavior or conduct. The key word is pattern, so a single offense of solicitation may be still okay. Again, any criminal convictions should be reviewed by the immigration attorney. Question 30H asks if the applicant has ever failed to support dependents or pay alimony. Failure to pay alimony or child support may lead to a denial. Therefore, it's important to note that if an applicant may have minor children that are living abroad, immigration may ask whether or not the applicant has been supporting that child, and may even ask for proof of or evidence of support, financial support for that child. Questions 31 and 32 relate to misrepresentations to the government. False information given for an immigration benefit may have serious consequences. Please notify the reviewing attorney if you have any doubt whether this situation may come up with the applicant you're assisting. Question 44 relates to selective service. Males between ages 18 and 26 must register for selective service unless they are in a temporary legal status, such as a student visa, visitor visa, or other type of temporary visa. You can easily check a registration online by going to www.sss.gov and entering the applicant's name, last name, Social Security number, and birth date. Part 13 is a section where the applicant will sign. If the applicant used an interpreter, please indicate that interpreter was used in the language in which the interpreter spoke. Question 2 asks about a preparer. If the applicant received assistance from a volunteer or a pro bono attorney, your name would be listed here as the preparer. Note that this person, the preparer, could be a different person from the interpreter. Then the applicant must sign in Part 13. If the applicant cannot write their name, they can also mark an X. Part 14 relates to the interpreter. If an applicant used an interpreter, this must be completed. Then the interpreter must sign and date their name. Part 15 is information about the preparer. Again, if the applicant used a preparer, this part must also be completed and signed by the person providing assistance. Again, the preparer may be the same or different person as the interpreter. Both sections must be filled out if an interpreter and preparer is used. Parts 16 and Part 18 on page 19 and 20 may be left blank. These will be completed by the applicant at the interview. Make sure that you leave the entire page 20 blank. This concludes our training today on filling out the N-400. Thank you for participating, and I hope that you find this information helpful. Have a great day.
We hope that you enjoyed this training. Instructions on how to request your California CLE certificate are available on the training page. Now that you have completed the training, we hope you will spend some time on PBTI's volunteer portal to easily browse and find volunteer opportunities related to this training. You can stay up to date on the latest PBTI developments by following us on social media by connecting with us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Thank you for participating in the Pro Bono Training Institute.